Welcome to this week's episode of Practice What You Teach. Today we have Kristen with us, and she's a dietitian. So, Kristen, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Okay, so I'm a registered dietitian, and then I'm also certified as an intuitive eating counselor. I'm also a mom and a wife and a dog mom. So that's kind of what keeps me occupied and pulls me in the different directions.
Yeah.
But I worked for years in critical care in a hospital, and then I've switched over to private practice with a focus in intuitive eating. So
Very exciting. Very exciting. Love intuitive eating. We had an intuitive eating person on several months ago, and so exciting stuff to think about and talk about. But how did you get into the dietitian world? Like, what kind of called you into that field?
So I think I kind of fell into it. And so I feel for people going into college now because there's so many professions that I just had no idea. I was always physically active, and I grew up in a house of foodies. And interestingly enough, a psychologist. So I think that nutrition therapy piece probably was in there somewhere. But I was taking biology classes. I was biology major and anatomy and physiology, and was just really drawn to the science aspect of nutrition. And I thought I would never, ever work in a hospital, or I thought I'd be really research or physical fitness. But once I went into critical care, I really fell in love with critical care, and I worked for 16 years in the critical care field. And I really liked the science and the learning aspect of that. Then as I've transitioned into private practice, it's completely different, and you build relationships with clients, and that's just so different and so fulfilling. And this whole intuitive eating is more holistic than that kind of strict science. It's really seeing that whole patient and kind of working from the inside out. How can I look at this whole person and see not just what they're putting in their mouth, but how they're dealing with their environment and talking to themselves. So I've fallen in love with nutrition a second time around, and really have enjoyed this.
Yeah, it really has that like holistic health kind of aspect to it, which is
Absolutely, yeah. But
everything
still
is
with a science background, there's still hundreds of studies to support it. And I still get to use my nutrition and science background, because I still have patients that have medical diagnoses that need attention. But we can't just, pigeonhole, okay, we can only look at this piece of it. There's still a whole person. And I had the luxury of time. When they go to a doctor's office, they don't have that option. They kind of have to go in and out, where I have the time to kind of get into it with them and help them figure that out. So it's been very rewarding.
So it's really cool and really nice to be able to give that time for people to ask questions, because at doctor's appointments, there just isn't that time.
Right.
Or maybe they're feeling rushed, or the doctor's already running behind. And so to have that space with you to really like get into the like, okay, how do we do this? Like, what is this actually going to look like for me? And like being able to have those troubleshooting conversations is so
Right.
like, it's an awesome opportunity for them. But I imagine also feels good for you, because I know that it feels good on the therapy side to do that
Yes.
too.
Yeah, you can relate. I know there's kind of almost a little bit of a crossover. You're like, oh, this feels like it's getting into another territory. I need to.
Yeah. But some good stuff. And so I imagine that with the work that you do with them, I imagine that there's lots of different things that you focus on, things that you might, tips, tricks, strategies, things that you're implementing. And I know that they're going to be individualized based on what everybody in their particular needs are. But question of the time and the episode, what's kind of one of the big ones that maybe you work a lot with your clients on or your patients on that you actually also use in your own personal life?
Okay, I would say I have this with almost every patient I see is, although they start off wanting to be intuitive eaters, they almost need a plan first. And that sounds counterintuitive. Like intuitive eating, you're supposed to listen to your body and, be introspective, but you almost need to have a plan and have that self-care so that you have the ability to let go of the stress of, oh my gosh, what am I going to have? It's 5 o'clock. I'm in a panic and I'm going to Uber eat, to then be able to hold back and be like, okay, what am I feeling? What's my hunger level? So I've actually used that quite a bit more than I thought. And it is something I use at home because I have a busy household. So meal planning, and there's a lot of things that I pull in. I'm really big on movement, meditation, and just the things we pick. But I think meal planning across the board has helped myself and my patients.
Yeah.
And it's that plan that translate into real life. So you can talk a lot to patients about these foods are really good, but what does that look like when they get home? And if they have something like, okay, this makes sense, this is how I can take what she's saying and apply it at home.
Yeah.
The difference, I think, with the intuitive eating side is instead of it being a plan or a diet, it's more of an inspiration, is what I tell them. So it's going to be kind of a playbook, but we always give ourselves grace. So this is going to give you a plan. And if we fall from that, that's okay. This might be a slip. It's not a slide.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I think through it.
Because I'm thinking about how it is too easy for, especially for those of us who, which is most of us, live very, very busy lives.
Yeah.
It's too easy for us to kind of like get out of sync with our body and the messages that it's trying to send us, right? Because our body's going to tell us when it's thirsty, when it's hungry, when it has to go to the bathroom, all of the different things our body communicates to us.
Right.
But when we are busy and we are in the zone, it's easy to forget lunch. It's easy to go all day and realize you never opened the water bottle that you packed with you at the beginning of the day. And so it seems like maybe the meal planning, while it doesn't have to be this like super strict, rigid, okay, at 5:30, I'm going to have a pork chop and some carrots and a salad and an apple. Like, and I don't even know what kind of meal. Like, so you're not saying like you're having to designate ahead of time the exact time and the exact foods, but more of like a general plan. So there can be some of that checking in.
It's brainstorming. It's really a lot of brainstorming. And what can happen, well, I have different types of clients, but what can happen is they get to that point of, I've got too many things going on, especially at the end of the day, and it's just too many things to answer, and I just cannot decide on dinner. So if this is already thought out, it's just one less thing. Or I didn't get any of the groceries to prep this, so the easiest thing is just to go do that. So it just takes one of the stressors out. And I'll show you how I do it in my own kitchen.
Yes, please.
This is something I just made. I just grabbed a frame from Michael's years ago. And this is not for everyone, but I don't know if there's a glare. There's probably a glare on that, but I just write on the glass. So I do Monday through and I just write out, and then kind of over on the side, I write things that I want to have in the fridge extra.
Gotcha.
So, that works for us. And I always have, like I'll pick a day where I know we have a busy night. So that's a takeout night. So I kind of have a plan for the week, and it's hanging in the kitchen. So the kids know what night they kind of get kids' choice or things they prefer. I also have patients that they don't really want to be pigeonholed, and they don't want it that concrete. So we'll do more themes. So we'll plan out like, how about every Tuesday you have something that's Taco Tuesday inspired? So something in that. And then Wednesday, breakfast foods, and Thursday, sheet pan recipes, so that it's not so rigid, but you don't get paralyzed with decisions. You think, what's a sheet pan recipe? Okay, well, tonight is sandwich night. Okay. So it kind of helps lead them in the direction, and it takes some of the decisions out, if that makes sense. So that's worked with some of my clients that don't want it to be quite so rigid.
Yeah, I mean, I'm literally sitting here like, okay, what are all my days of the week going to be? Because that is such a good idea, because that choice paralysis does get it. There's too many options,
There
right?
are.
There's just too many things. And so when we can even kind of narrow that down, there is still that flexibility of, okay, do I have the time to like make this like fancy fajita pan and all of the things? No, but like I can make a taco salad. Like I've got time for a
Right.
taco salad, and it's still kind of in that theme. And so that flexibility that is like vital for sustainability with this,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
And that word is like so key, not only for our patients and clients, but also for our own self. How do we, what's going to work, not just this week or this month, but what can I keep going with? So that having that flexibility, but also helping us to kind of narrow it down so we don't get stuck in the like, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know.
Yes. Because what happens when we get there is we hold it off, and then we kind of overdo it. We get to that point of, primal hunger, and then we overdo our eating, or we reach for things that maybe we wouldn't have had. We maybe would have had more nutrient dense choices if we had kind of gone with our hunger when we first felt it. So if we can kind of think through, it's really a form of self-care when we can kind of think through. The other thing I really want to be veggie forward in picking nutrients. So I think when you plan it out, you're going to think, okay, where can I roast a bunch of vegetables ahead of the time and have those ready for the week? And, if you're kind of planning it out, if you're not, what I find is that veggies are an afterthought. So I think planning helps people to get a little bit more veggie forward too in their days. And
yeah, rather than focusing on the brown food, right?
yeah.
The
Or
meats
the
and the
meat. It
breads.
feels like most people are like, what meat am I going to have for dinner?
Yeah, interesting. That's, and even that is maybe just a different perspective to take as you're kind of thinking about some of the meals, right? Like, yeah, how can I start with the veg and then add in the protein?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So different ways to kind of navigate this meal planning. Some of it, I love the board. And I even like how I think on one of the days you had kind of like a slow roasted or crock pot something. So even kind of a thought process of like, all right, I might not have a lot of time that day. I know I've maybe got a meeting after work or something I got to stop and do. So that's going to planning ahead though of that's got to be a crock pot day or dinner's not going to until after bedtime, and that's not going to work. And so it also seems like doing that for you is a way, and I could be wrong, so call me out if I am, but maybe a way of just kind of thinking about your like time and your commitments for the week, and like how can we still get all of our nutritional needs met? Maybe given that some days I just might not have as much time as I normally would.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what does this look like for you? Because you do kind of do the weekly thing or the kind of just general kind of brainstorming for each day. It seems like
Right.
probably some flexibility there, but what happens for you when the last minute curveball situations come up and maybe somebody calls you and asks you or tells you that you need to stop somewhere in the evening, or maybe your kid remembers that they have a big project due tomorrow and they have not started it, and you need to go to Michael's and get all the supplies and do all of the things. How do you navigate when maybe something comes up that might get in the way of what you had planned for that day?
So I would say that's not a maybe. That's probably like a weekly occurrence that we have hiccups. And I think the good part of this frame of thinking is that you always give yourself grace. And this is just inspiration. So I have the supplies, I have stuff in the freezer, and is there shame in me grabbing some takeout? No, it's not one meal. It's not one day of eating. It's my overall way of eating that indicates my nutrition status. So, we don't need to kind of be hard on ourselves for something like that. It's kind of pick up and keep going. You had kind of an interruption and a tough moment, but that's all right. This is just inspiration and giving me ideas. And if I need to flip flop or do something else or grab something from the freezer, then we just kind of keep on going.
Yeah. And so it seems like kind of having some of those like frozen backup things kind of already planned out, and things that you maybe have taken time to plan. So it's not just like a $3 frozen pizza from the store,
Right.
or like a frozen breakfast burrito from.
And I have some favorites. There's some websites that I work with clients that I have a meal planning software that my clients get. And then there's also some websites, and everybody has their favorite Pinterest too, but there's lots of ways that you can pre-cook or have things prepared ahead of time that are your emergency go-tos. But we've all run into having cereal and yogurt and fruit for dinner. I mean, those things happen, and I just don't beat myself up about it. We just pick right back up. So, I think you can be prepared, but also be realistic to how chaotic life can be.
Yes. Lots and lots of grace and flexibility. And it seems like that's the important takeaway, right? We gotta have that.
That's right.
In order for this all to work. And so regardless of if you do kind of the board like you have, where you've got your days planned out, or if someone was doing the like Taco Tuesday, Breakfast Wednesday, like Sheet Pan Thursday, kind of that plan, what does it look like on weeks where maybe it's holidays or you've got family kind of coming to visit, where now you're having to like think about other people's preferences, taste buds? Because deciding for your family is one thing, right? You kind of know what people like, what people don't. We're going to leave mushrooms out of this. We're going to have extra cheese on that. Like, kind of what that looks like for your family. But how does that change when maybe there are other people that you're having to kind of take into consideration?
Components. I think that for me personally, I think I plan more. When I have company coming, I think I plan more and plan further ahead of time. We have had food allergies, and we have some food sensitivities in the family. So we have to be kind of cognizant of what the whole meal is going to be. And I know certain meals, like I know if I do fajitas, I can do, all of the foods, and people can go through the line and pick things, and that will, eliminate allergies or irritants to everybody or pickiness. Yeah. So I know that there's certain go-tos. I think what may be different is maybe if you go on a vacation, and I've had clients say, you know what, we went to Mexico and I just enjoyed it. And that's kind of, I want you to enjoy eating all the time at home. But I think what they mean is they felt their hunger and they went with the timing. And so you may not have your meals planned, but maybe that intuitive timing when you're on vacation comes into play. And that's really what the meal planning is setting it up for. It's kind of setting that perfect set up for you to be able to be more intuitive and listen, so that when you do go on vacation, that's already there. You're already used to, now I'm hungry, let's do this. Now I'm full. So I hope that that translates into different situations.
Yeah.
And that you're just really more chaotic kind of during the work week. And that's when you need a little bit of a crutch of a loose plan.
Yeah, because
That makes sense.
it does. And I'm thinking about how I imagine on vacation, it can be very common for people, especially if your vacation is maybe to a place where you're staying in a hotel and not like to visit family.
Yeah.
I imagine it can be pretty common for people to like eat out more because it's
Yeah.
hard to cook in hotels. It
Right.
just, and especially if you have more than just yourself
Yeah.
to be cooking food for. So there might be more like eating out, and then that may mean that maybe the nutritional components might look a little bit different. Just
Right.
might be getting more sodium if we're eating out or other things. And so part of it sounds like, is just allowing yourself to enjoy that one, that handful of days or that week of vacation isn't going to throw off kind of your year of working on intuitive eating.
Right.
But I'm also kind of hearing too that maybe kind of the meal planning helps to just build that, rebuild or strengthen that connection with your body.
Exactly.
So that way it doesn't get to, we're on vacation and all of a sudden we realize it's 6:30 and we're getting hungry. So maybe we should find some dinner somewhere. And now all of the restaurants that have good food are like booked out until 10 p.m. So I guess we're getting tacos from Taco Bell.
Right.
And so it seems like it's kind of helping to build a little bit of that.
Training. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And if you've had, what's very, very common is to start off with patients that never eat breakfast. You don't have hunger in the morning if you don't eat breakfast. So the first thing we do is start eating breakfast without hunger. But it's just kind of that same thought process, as if we're kind of almost introducing the food, and that hunger comes, and that hunger and fullness cue comes. So it's kind of a similar thought process, that we're laying the groundwork so that you can become more introspective and feel that. And then hopefully when you're in other situations, it just all ties in.
Yes.
Very common.
Yeah, so many helpful tips. And yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm already kind of thinking about what might it look like to use some of that, like maybe themed days to just kind of, man, that choice paralysis can get you. Whether, even if you're trying to plan ahead and you're sitting and looking at your week and you're like, okay, well, I have made baked chicken every week. I need something different, but I don't know what else to make. So I guess we're having it again. And so kind of having that theme though, maybe kind of just helps to add some variety to it, but within a space where it maybe feels okay to explore something different.
And what I had someone recently do that, and how she did it, and what I love is we came up with themes. Then she sat down and had a family meeting, which I thought was amazing, because I feel like a lot of times the burden falls on one person. But they had a family meeting and they brainstormed 5 favorite meals for each theme.
Oh my gosh.
So they had a rotation for every night, and she kind of had it just in, like she had it all written down, but she had for every night kind of 5 theme meals that people all kind of had thrown in the hat of, I love this idea. So there was always something moving around.
Yeah.
Isn't that fun?
I love that, because then you can go and you're not having to repeat the same thing week after week, right? It's maybe once a month you might kind of have that dish. And because everybody contributed, there's kind of that like, ooh, we had your favorite this week. Next week it's my favorite one, and I'm pumped for that one. So
isn't that great?
Shared experience. I love that.
I know, I love that too. Yeah, she came up with that family meeting on her own, but I love that idea. I thought that was amazing.
Yeah. Another one that I might have to kind of tuck away in here and maybe think about using. So if people want to learn more about kind of some of these meal planning ideas, get in touch with you, maybe kind of work with you on some of this stuff, how can they find you?
So on my website, there's always a free discovery call. So you can click the link to book a free discovery call. There's also, if you just want to try out there's a meal planning software on there, and you can do 3 of the days for free. So if you want to just kind of play around with it, it's on there for you to kind of play around and see, oh, what kind of recipes are on there and play around. But there's blogs and information on there that you can, dip your toes in. But if you're ready for nutrition therapy, book a discovery call and we can see if we're a fit.
Yeah, and I'll put the link down in the bio so that way people can find you pretty easily. And we can also put some links to some of those other favorite food meal planning websites that you had mentioned earlier.
Okay.
So that way people can, if they are looking for more ideas too, they can kind of help, because Pinterest can be an endless hole with planning stuff. Even just sheet pan recipes, I can just keep scrolling and
The
scrolling and
time
scrolling.
suck. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you so much. I love talking about just some of these things that are so, it's tangible, but it's something that can be so, so helpful. But I like that it's something specific that people can take and try out. And like I said, I'm thinking about what my themes are going to be for next week, and already
Oh,
kind of starting to think about the grocery list that I need for that.
oh, good.
Yes, yes. So thank you so much. And thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe so you're up to date when new videos are coming out, and we'll see you next time.